as a completions engineer, what I always considered my ultimate job role to be is that I had the most efficient frac crew, right? I was pumping to design and that I was pumping as many hours a day as I could be. That is my ultimate job.
WTF, good data. Danica, what does this mean?
Good data, I would define as something that you can get actionable insights out of, right? So that can be obviously a pretty broad spectrum of things, but good data would be a full cohesive data set. It's enabling you to answer the questions you're looking to answer. So in the completions realm, right, I think the most obvious use case is we're all trying to pump more hours a day.
Yep.
So I want to be recording data specifically around when I'm not pumping fluid.
Yep.
If I can figure out when I'm not pumping, then it's easier for me to figure out why I'm not pumping. And then I can do something different the next day or the next pad to increase how many hours a day I'm pumping. Because when I'm pumping, I'm getting the most money out of my frac.
When you're not pumping, so there's non-productive time and
exactly.
You're just burning cash. So can you maybe just give me a little bit of background? So as a completions engineer, like what's been your experience?
The standard for completions data historically has been at the end of my stage, I get a CSV of raw data. So it has a bunch of channels. The headers are always different. And it tells me what happened while I was pumping. And that's really, really important information. And I don't want to discount that. It's really important for reservoir. It's important for an understanding of how your stage treated. But from an operations standpoint, I have these huge gaps of, okay, well, it took me 10 minutes to swap between stages. I don't get any of that information right now.
So that's what the gaps are. So there's different stages that are happening and it's just a blind zone.
Yeah. And I'm not getting any bit of information about that historically. You are literally just getting a CSV output that I would then have to wrangle and put back together. And it could be different from pad to pad. It could be different from well to well or even stage to stage if they reset their frac van and their headers change. And then I'm manually having to spend time to piecemeal a data set back together in a usable fashion. And I don't have time to do that.
So are you making assumptions in order to fill in the gaps? Like what's the process? How do you actually go about when you have these blind zones? How would you actually go about trying to figure that out?
You are reliant upon hopefully your well site supervisors or your on-site representatives, your company men, one of the zillions of terms we have in oil and gas.
Yeah.
But for my guy on site, I'm reliant upon him to hopefully add like some contextual information into my well management software, right? So,
yeah.
But half the time they just put in the time log well swap. And one well swap was 5 minutes, and one well swap was 6 minutes, and one well swap was 20 minutes, and one was 2 hours.
So you have no idea what the actual issue is.
Nope.
They're just adding in, hey, this took this much time. You're like, well, I've already kind of know that because I know that there's a gap in the data set.
Yes. And so then you don't have any pressure data. You know, you're not seeing that, oh, well, frac was ready to go, but we were waiting on wireline to swap, or hey, the water team wasn't ready to go. When I'm live streaming my water data, I'm live streaming my wellhead data, I'm live streaming my frac data and my wireline, well, then I can see, oh, frac was, primed. They were ready. They've been ready to go, but I can see that our sand silos, right? We didn't have enough sand to start the stage. We knew we wouldn't have enough. We don't start until we have enough. And so it's obvious to me, oh, well, we waited 20 minutes for a sand truck to finish offloading. And that's why that took a 20-minute swap. And therefore, I need to be working with my logistics coordinators to be making sure that we're not doing things like waiting on sand, because I'm spending money on my frac crew, on my wireline crew, on every piece of my daily rental for a commodity.
So by having good data and by having actually data, let's say from every service provider that's actually happening on a job site, it actually gives you the transparency to understand what's actually going on, yes, where you're losing time, what area is actually responsible for that, so you can actually make decisions to influence that.
Exactly. And I think historically, when you don't have that, there's a lot of finger pointing, right?
Yeah. The blame game?
Exactly. Water says they were ready to go. Frac says they were ready to go. Wireline says they were ready to go. And the wellhead says they were, and so does sand.
So
And
who do you trust?
exactly. Who do you trust? I don't know. When I'm in the office seeing this hour or this data 24 hours later, a week later, when I, through my invoices and the other daily tasks I have, by the time I get through all of that and I want to go back and do a post analysis, nobody, my guy on site, he showed up yesterday. He just got back from his 2 weeks off. He doesn't know what was happening on Tuesday of last week.
Yeah.
He can't give me any insight into it. I'm not going to call a guy on days off and be like, hey, do you remember what was happening at 10 a.m. last Tuesday?
Yeah.
They're like, maybe that was the stage where we had a sand issue, or maybe that was this, Frack was doing some pump maintenance, right? He won't remember. And so if you're not live streaming everybody's data set, then it becomes really, really, really difficult.
Okay, so let's jump into this, because one of the things that I understand too is that I think that traditionally Cold Bore and SmartPAD has been grouped into kind of being an aggregator.
Yep.
So how would you, as a completions engineer, that you have gaps, how would you approach when it comes to, how would you have traditionally used an aggregator, or would you have actually employed that to help you identify some of the gaps?
Yeah. So when I was a completions engineer, aggregators weren't super popular.
Why?
They just really hadn't come to market. Why is a great question. Payson's been here forever, and they're streaming real-time drilling data on the rigs. And I've been both a drilling and completions engineer. I know how beautiful it is to pull up the Payson app on your phone and be like, oh, we're tripping.
Yep.
Oh, this is exactly what we're doing because I can read some lines on my screen. But it wasn't. When I was a completions engineer, for the most part, the status quo was a CSV at the end of the stage.
Yeah.
So I would have been thrilled about a data aggregator because it would have been an improvement beyond what I was doing.
Yeah.
So kudos, we're all making a step in the right direction by going towards data aggregators. At Cold Bore, we're a step ahead of that because we are, the problem with the data aggregator is everybody has their own timeline. So Frack, maybe they're 2 minutes off in their internal clock.
And this does happen.
Oh, for sure.
This is a real problem.
I mean, is your watch perfectly synced with everybody else's watch?
No, but I do get used to my iPhone, for example. So
Yes.
with Verizon, we're probably synced to a universal time when it comes to these devices, but all of the different devices that are being utilized by different service companies, they're not all basically synced
to the same time zone. No,
Yeah.
for sure not. So you can see, a 30-second discrepancy, maybe a minute discrepancy. Maybe someone didn't update their computer and it's ignoring daylight savings, right?
Yeah.
It's not outside of the realm of possible, right?
Yep.
And so what you may get out of it is, Frack says that they were swapping from 10 o'clock to 10:05. Well, Wireline says they were swapping from 10:02 to 10:08.
So the aggregator is aggregating the data, but it doesn't know the difference, or it doesn't know which timestamp's correct.
It's just live streaming the data exactly as how it gets it.
Yep.
It's not doing anything to it. It's just saying, hey, here's all the data. And so I don't know exact time offsets. And when you're talking about trying to get towards factory level performance, which is what we're after, right?
Yep.
We want just a beautiful mobile factory that we are moving from one random spot in Texas to one random spot in West Virginia. That's what you want because that's consistent, it's precise, it's reliable, it's predictable, it's efficient, right?
Yeah.
That 30 seconds can matter. And then two, I'm having to spend my time piecemealing disparate data sets back together, right? At the end of the day, I just have streams from Frack and I just have streams from Wireline, and I'm having to spend a lot of time doing data engineering
Yep.
and saying, oh, well, we were fracking here. This was our pad and our slurry and our flush. And then here I can see we're priming and pressure testing and all these little tiny things. I'm having to use that contextual information. Where we're doing that differently at Cold Bore is we are live streaming all of your data, but we're putting it on a single timestamp. And so it doesn't matter if every single buddy didn't sync their watch at the same time or sync their computer to the same moment, because we're just taking that out of it. We're saying, hey, According to Cold Bore, it's 10:02 a.m. And it doesn't matter if you think it's 10 o'clock or 10:04, it's freaking 10:02 a.m.
Yep, everybody's synced.
Exactly. And so beyond that, we also have really, really robust algorithms that are just running and saying, hey, we're detecting what's happening on your wellhead, right? And so we're saying, hey, you are fracking stage 4 on well 1. With just the raw data streams you get from frack, all you know is that you're fracking or not fracking. I don't know what well I'm on.
Yep.
I don't know what stage I'm on. And so you're going to have to go back and spend a lot of time doing the data engineering to piecemeal that all back together instead of just having a beautiful, cohesive data set that says, objectively, this is what happened on your pad today. You spent 40 minutes fracking stage 1 on this well, then you had a 5-minute swap, and then 35 minutes. And so we're generating an agnostic pad level timeline.
So when you would have to take disparate data sets and try to put them all together to get clarity on what actually happened on a job and understanding what some of the issues were, you're a data scientist. So are most completions engineers also data scientists? And is it hard to actually put this data together for a completions engineer? Like, is this complicated, challenging stuff?
Yeah, like it's not going to be fun. It's not fun even if you're a data scientist, right? Even whether you're a completions engineer or a data scientist, nobody likes the role of data engineering, right? It's what you end up spending a ton of your time doing. It's like 80% of your job, but that's not what's fun because you're not solving a problem.
You're
right?
just still trying to get a look at the problem.
Exactly. And that is not fun. What is fun is when you have a beautiful data set in front of you and you can be like, oh man, what happened here? What happened there? Oh man, I get to play and I get to dig and I get to explore and I get to learn and I get to make a better decision tomorrow. But unless you are using something like Cold Bore, you will continue to spend 80% of your time being a human data aggregator instead of being a human data analyzer. And you're too intelligent to spend your time being an aggregator.
So is this the sell to, when a completions engineer, and as I understand it, they're responsible for, okay, we're going to determine exactly what we need on site, how much things are going to cost. They're putting together what the actual frac plan is going to be.
Yep.
So back, from your experience as a completions engineer, how would someone have to communicate to you about, like, is it just what you said that, hey, you don't have to spend 80% of your time putting stuff together. You can actually have the data and spend that 80% identifying what the actual problems are, either in real time or after the job is done. Like, what's the sell to a completions engineer to say, this is worthwhile to add it to your line item on a job?
I think it's exactly what you said. It's like, are you sick of piecemealing CSVs together? Are you sick of waiting on your internal IT department to write an API connection to get you data over a data aggregator just for you to still have to wrangle a data set together? Are you sick of spending your time doing that? Or beyond that, do you not even have the time to do that currently? And maybe you're not as aware of your operations as you want to be. Because I think as a completions engineer, what I always considered my ultimate job role to be is that I had the most efficient frac crew, right? I was pumping to design and that I was pumping as many hours a day as I could be. That is my ultimate job. And what I should be doing is consistent improvement. And I think right now it's so hard for you to really understand without a ton of manual data entry from you have these company men with decades of experience and they're smart and they're good at frac. And we are paying them a ton of money to enter data into like some old database that's going to give you some insight, but it's not really going to get you where you want to go. And like, they don't want to be entering data. Like, that's not...
Like, they got another job to do as opposed to just entering data and logging what's actually happening.
They should be calling your stages. They should be watching your chem usage. They should be making sure you're hitting treatment rate. They should be focused on safety. They should be focused on walking around the pad for hazards, like all kinds of things, more so than saying, Yeah, the average treating pressure on stage 5 was 9,004 psi because they had to ask the frac engineer sitting next to them to give them that number so that they can enter it in WellView. And then I don't, especially stuff like that, right? Like your initial shut-in pressures. I have seen a lot of frac engineers calculate that a lot of different ways. And so what I think is a good ISIP was dependent upon the engineer that calculated. Maybe it's a green engineer and he doesn't know that much. Or maybe they're a really experienced engineer and they're fabulous at calculating them, right? Versus if you're using something like a cold bore where we have algorithms that are just detecting what's going on and calculating things, well, then we've taken the human element out of a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
There's no objective, we're an objective truth, right? It's not, well, this company man says the stage starts when we open the well, and this says that the stage starts when we start pumping. Because there's a miscommunication, and this guy's last company defined it by well open, and this guy's last company defined it by pumps engaged, right? So you just start taking these small discrepancies so that you have a consistent, reliable data set that you can take from any frac company in the world, Halliburton, ProFrac, NextTier, from any wireline company in the world. And we are calculating everything the same in a standard way so that me as an operator, it doesn't matter who my company man was. It doesn't matter who my frac crew was. I'm going to get the data the same, calculated the same every single time so that I can objectively compare pads. I can objectively compare frac crews, and I can compare anything I want to so that my next pad is more efficient than my last one.
Well, so let's go from, we've got a lot of great data that is being available on site in real time. You're being able to make decisions, but how does the data actually, how does the data get to someone, let's say in Houston? How does the data get back to the office? Is it the real-time centers? Is that the kind of the term that I'm hearing?
You are seeing an increase in those for sure.
It's not just people on site who are making decisions anymore.
Correct.
People off site are making decisions. So in order for that to happen, they need to be able to access data.
Yes.
So how does the data get from on site to someone in an office with SmartPAD?
Okay. There's a few different ways. So one, it's the middle of the night. You get a phone call from your frac crew that says, hey, yeah, pressure's coming up on us. It's 2 a.m. You're tired, but you're on call. I've been there, both as a completions engineer and as a drilling engineer. The difference is, as a drilling engineer, when you had PACE on, I could pull up PACE on and I could be looking at it and I could see the data live.
Yep.
And it's easier for me to make an engineering decision to help them. When you're in the frac world, if they're calling you because they have an issue, I'm just like, okay, well, like what's been going on? Like I'm having to spend a lot of time getting contextual information from them. So I think one of the big first advantages is it's 2 a.m. Well, you can roll over and look at SmartPAD on your mobile phone and you can see what frac's been doing for the past 15 minutes. And that alone is enabling you to make a real-time decision that I don't think you've previously had. Now, it's your average day-to-day, right? And I just want to have a look at my data. One of my favorite things about Cold Bore is we are so concerned about data accessibility.
Yep.
So there's 3 ways you can get data from us. You can stream live data over WebSocket. What that basically means is as we get live data, we push it, right? So that it's a very passive for the operator way to acquire data. As we get new data, we just send it to you over WebSocket. Easy. The second way, probably the most popular way people get data right now is over what's called an API, which is an application programming interface. And I think the best analogy I've ever heard for an API is a waiter. So I'm sitting at a restaurant and I tell my waiter, hey, I want a number 5 with no onions. I gave them very specific criteria. I told them what I wanted. They run back to the kitchen. They get a number 5 with no onions and they bring it back to me. So the waiter both taking my request to the kitchen and bringing my food to me, that is an API. So it doesn't matter what the kitchen looks like. I never have to know what the kitchen looks like.
Yeah.
I just told them the information that I wanted and they brought it back to me. So that's what an API is.
Okay.
It's just a really straightforward way for you to communicate with any company and say, hey, I want this information. These are the details you need to get me what I want. And then you send it back. So it's really easy.
Yeah.
The other thing I love about Cold Bore is that we provide Snowflake.
Okay. I have been hearing about this. So describe, because this is into the data warehousing conversation,
Yes.
right?
So Snowflake's a data warehouse. And the difference there is, let's say I'm going to go to a restaurant and I'm going to get a 3-course meal. So right now I tell my waiter, I want calamari for my appetizer, I want a burger for my entree, and I want tiramisu for dessert. Okay. He takes those 3 requests and he will bring them back to me. A data warehouse is more like you show up at a fancy restaurant and there's a chef curated menu. And so it says, well, I know that, nachos and enchiladas and, flan, those 3 are great together.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to make that menu available to you. And so the difference there is, instead of me having to read API documentation and me as a data scientist or as an IT person or a very tech savvy completions engineer send all these individual requests and say, hey, I want this piece of data. Hey, I want this piece of data. Hey, I want this piece of data. With the data warehouse, we just serve up the data and say, hey, this is a really intuitive way to have all the data put together. You don't even have to think about it. You can just straight pull all your stage summary data put together. You don't have to ping us and say, hey, I want the average treating pressure for this stage. Hey, I want the average rate for this other stage. We just say, hey, I know you're going to want all of the rates and pressures for all the stages. And so we just serve that up to you in an immediately usable data set.
So to me, in a way, this seems like if you're working with customers, and as you spend more time working with customers and understanding how they want to use the data, how they're deriving value from it, does this help you identify that these are the things that go well together? This is the information that people are looking for, and you can build that into the system.
Exactly.
And allow people to get exactly what they need. But it's like, all of these other companies are doing all these amazing things. So you can bring that to customers.
Exactly. And we know that a lot of times the bottleneck for our clients is getting some time from their data science team or getting some time for their IT team to re-engineer these huge data sets so that they can do whatever they want with it. We know that that's a bottleneck for customers.
Yeah.
And so we just eliminated that. And we said, we will just host a beautiful data warehouse for you so that a completions engineer can literally log in with a username and a password. They can see the table and they can just download it. There's direct connects into, your Power BIs, your Spotfire. They all have direct connects into Snowflake. And so what we've done is we've really reduced the barrier for your average completions engineer who doesn't know how to write one line of code to get beautiful, clean, easy access to the data they need to make a more efficient decision tomorrow.
So how many completions engineers actually have coding experience and background? Like, is that a normal, common thing, or is that unique?
It's increasing for sure, which I, as someone who has both of those, really enjoy. And it's been really cool to see the oil and gas industry embrace, we should be more tech savvy. If you're going to know any other language, I always say the best language to know is a coding language, right?
Yep.
And so you're seeing an increase in it. You're seeing people realize would be really, really beneficial for me. But I think it's even better for us on the tech side to just enable the data right to them, and they can
don't
focus.
Have to be a software engineer. They don't have to know how to do that. They can actually just focus on doing their job really well, as opposed to learning how to interface with all of the data.
Exactly. So let's superpower them by meeting them where they're at, which is maybe they don't like coding, maybe it's not their main skill set, and let's allow them to use their years of knowledge of completions to make a better decision tomorrow, instead of trying to spend their time learning to code so that they can wrangle data so that they can make a better decision. Let's just shortcut that.
If you could go back in time and tell yourself as a completions engineer about Cold Bore and what the future would look like, what would Danica, the completions engineer, think about this whole value proposition?
Well, when I was a completions engineer, I wanted to use cold bore. They were just kind of coming on the market. And then when I transitioned to the data science department, and I would get these requests to wrangle these data sets, and people would want all this information. You have an SVP being like, man, I really, really want to know this metric. And you're like, I just don't have that data where I want, right? The further I got into the data science world, I think the more I realized how imperative it is for operators to be partnering with tech companies instead of everybody trying to develop their own internal solution, because we get economies of scale by being cold bore. And that value that we get from that goes back directly to all of our customers. Instead of having every single operator try to, build their own database and their own algorithms and all this stuff, it just makes way more sense to partner with us and have beautiful, clean, agnostic data than everybody try to develop it themselves. So I think the pitch is clear for cold bore. It's stop spending your time being a data aggregator, a human data aggregator, and let's start spending your time being a human decision maker with good data.
Hey, last question. So let's say if someone is a completions engineer currently and they're watching this and they would be interested in learning more, but they don't want to talk to a salesperson. Is there opportunities to learn more about cold bore and SmartPAD and everything without having to talk to the sales guys? Because just sometimes it just, we're not ready for that level of commitment. We just need more information.
Yes. Call me. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I would prefer that we just talk during normal working hours about your data hurdles, what your data goals are. And that can be agnostic as well. Like, as much as I believe in cold bore, I'd love to hear your individual problems and make sure that we're going to help you achieve your goals.
And it's probably fair that if they're having a problem, someone else that you've worked with probably has had similar problems, and allows you to leverage that experience
Absolutely
to help that.